Well, Vikings off-season activities have wrapped up for the summer until the start of training camp coming up at the end of July and into August. So let's jump into it. I know there was a lot of talk over the last couple of days of J.J. McCarthy, quote-unquote, struggling in camp, and you were there for all 3 days of minicamp. You've been there for the OTAs. So as someone with eyes on practices, with boots on the ground, what can you tell us about your takeaways from seeing J.J. McCarthy at Vikings practices over the last month or so?
Yeah, my takeaway is that there really hasn't been anything that's changed my opinion on JJ McCarthy coming into the spring, which was a pretty high opinion, just from hearing the way that his teammates talk about him and his coaches talk about him, and having watched him practice at training camp last year before the injury, and just seeing some of the arm talent, some of the movement ability, just some of the things that made the Vikings take him with the 10th pick in last year's draft. It was a lot of more of the same. McCarthy didn't struggle. He threw a few interceptions here and there in some of these spring practices, but that's okay. That's kind of the point, to some extent, of these practices, is to figure out what you can get away with and test things, and work on different kinds of throws to different kinds of windows. Like this portion of the offseason is really all about teaching and learning and installation and development, building chemistry with teammates. It's not as much about the competition element as it will be when training camp comes around. So, that'll be more interesting when camp is here, to not track the reps and say, oh, he was 7 for 9 or whatever, because I don't think that's still that valuable either. But there will be more to take away from those sessions. I think in these periods, it's a lot of 7-on-7 actions, kind of like a passing camp. There's no pads. There's no full 11-on-11 work at anything close to full speed. So you can't really evaluate the guys in the trenches at all. But still, you saw McCarthy find some guys with that zip. And one thing he said after practice today that he's been working on is the different kinds of throws and layering throws to get the ball over a defender, changing speeds a little bit so he's not always just going with the fastball. But he didn't struggle overall. There were some ups and downs, but there was nothing that made me less confident that JJ McCarthy is going to have a big season for the Vikings this year.
You guys have talked to coaches, teammates. What are they all saying about how McCarthy has come back from that injury and how he's looking as they get ready to head into training camp at the end of next month?
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly positive. McCarthy said today that his knee isn't an issue at all, and I don't think there was nothing that ever looked like that was the case. So he's good from a health standpoint. Kevin O'Connell mentioned that he's in a great physical state right now, and I think just the thing that's come up a little bit, the narrative of the arm strength.
Yeah.
Colin Coward was talking about it and just not really doing any actual research, just kind of spouting old pre-draft scouting reports. I just don't really know where it came from. And there was a great moment in JJ's press conference today where he was asked about that. He's I don't really know either. And his theories were maybe playing at Michigan and not throwing the ball a ton, not being a huge like Josh Allen sized guy. So maybe there's some eye test stuff, but on tape at Michigan, there were a lot of throws where he was zipping the ball in there. And in these practices, you see that quite a bit. The way that he spins it, how tight his spiral is, the ball gets from point A to its intended point B pretty quick. And that's what all of his teammates and coaches have said. Kevin O'Connell talked about it. Offensive coordinator Wes Phillips talked about it yesterday, saying he's always had a strong arm. Justin Jefferson on multiple occasions has talked about the zip, and how quickly that ball gets on you as a receiver. Safety Josh Metellus, we were talking with him earlier this week, and he was saying he's got one of the best zips of any quarterback that he's been around. So I think those are what fans should listen to, the people that are actually around it, his teammates, his coaches, and even just like people that are watching it, like myself and others who have seen the arm strength. I don't think that anybody's going to have concerns about that once they see this guy play in the fall.
Now, granted, it's only practice, and as you said, much of it's 7-on-7, so you can only tell so much. But from what you saw over the past couple weeks at OTAs and at minicamp, what does the offense look like and what does the defense look like, as there was a lot of offseason work on both of those sides, especially on the offensive line and the defensive line. I know there's not a whole lot of practice that those groups do, especially under Kevin O'Connell in this era, but from what you've been able to see, what have those two sides of the ball looked like?
Yeah, it's again, I mean, this will be more, this will be a good training camp discussion for sure about sometimes you say, well, which side of the ball is ahead of the other. I think if I had to pick one based on these, it would probably be the defense, which I don't think would come as a surprise to many people, just given how good that Vikings defense was last year under Brian Flores. And there's always this push and pull dynamic that's pretty fun in Vikings offseason practices where Kevin O'Connell and the offense are scheming up and doing all kinds of different things. And then the defense, Brian Flores is giving it right back to them. And they are, I mean, O'Connell said even today in minicamp, there was a look that Flores presented that he had never seen before. And he said something to center Ryan Kelly, like asked him a question. He's like, your guess is as good as mine. So that's always a fun dynamic. I mean, these are two of the best coaches in the league at what they do, their respective side of the ball. So the battles in these practices are always quite good. But yeah, offensively, McCarthy I thought had a solid mini camp, solid spring, good spring. Um, there obviously, I mean, there were a few picks like we mentioned, but there were also some great throws. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hockenson. You're seeing all the weapons. Um, we've seen some Jordan Mason added into the picture. Jalen Naylor is a guy who has bulked up a little bit and looks like he could be in line for a big year as the number 3 receiver in a contract year. So I have no real concerns about the offense. I think, if anything, I've been encouraged by what I've seen from the defense in these sessions. And again, this is not even talking about the trenches with Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, which I think is the most exciting part of this upgraded Vikings defense. But a guy who I would really keep an eye on is Isaiah Rodgers, the Vikings' new number 2 cornerback. There's all this talk about Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander, or the Vikings need a corner. I would be, as we've talked about and as I've written about, I would be interested in seeing that happen. With that said, I think people might not realize how good Isaiah Rodgers is. I think that guy has a chance to have a really good season. Whether he's the number 2 corner, whether maybe they sign somebody and he's the number 3, um, he's been impressive. He's a playmaker. He's a guy who played really well for the Eagles last season, coming off of a gambling suspension in 2023. Had some good years with the Colts before that. Just an ascending player who Brian Flores and the Vikings are really excited about. And then, I mean, you can talk about all kinds of other players. Dallas Turner was another big story who I wrote about earlier this week after Tuesday's practice. He had a play where in that session where he broke up a pass like 20 yards downfield. And this is a guy who's known for his pass rush ability, but also kind of learning that Andrew Van Ginkel role last year and being able to be versatile, line up off the ball, drop into coverage. He had an interception doing that against the Seahawks last December. So lot of year 2 Dallas Turner hype. Isaiah Rodgers has been good. So some of those guys on defense, we already know about the Harrison Smith and Blake Cashman and Byron Murphy and these guys. But I would say there's a lot to be excited about with this Vikings defense before you even start to talk about what could be a nasty, nasty pass rush in front 7.
When we look back at the draft, one of the big notes was the Vikings taking Donovan Jackson, guard, to fill out the rest of their offensive line that they overhauled the interior of, especially. How much of him did you see at minicamp and at OTAs, and how much of this offensive line were you able to see, if any? I know Kevin O'Connell doesn't like to work those 2 units heavily during these types of camps, so you can only tell so much. But what did you notice of Donovan Jackson? How much was he fitting in to the first unit?
Yeah, there's really nothing to say from an evaluation standpoint. I mean, the offensive linemen basically do their individual drills with their position members, and then they're off to the side for the 7-on-7s, and then they come in for the 11s where the Vikings are installing stuff with the full team, but those are run at 50-60%
Right.
speed, not non-competitively. It's just about getting the plays down. What I can say is just from a usage and availability standpoint, Donovan Jackson has been the number 1 left guard all off season, and there's no reason to think that that won't be the case in week one. Part of that is because we haven't seen Will Fries, who's going to be their starting right guard. He's still recovering from that tibia fracture he suffered last October. So he's not quite back yet. The Vikings, I think, believe that he's going to be ready for week one and probably ready to go for training camp. But that's meant Blake Brandel is at right guard. And then Christian Darrisaw also, he returned to practice on Tuesday doing some individual stuff, but it's been the veteran Justin School who's at left tackle. So Darrisaw and Fries still working their way back. Maybe if you say Fries is back for training camp, then maybe Brandel gets some reps at left guard, but I really fully expect it to be Donovan Jackson who's going to be starting at that spot.
So from what you've seen, who are some guys that may have popped out to you that stood out at camp that you weren't expecting to have big roles that kind of showed and sparked some intrigue going into training camp?
Yeah, it's tough. There's a few names that come to mind. I mean, I already mentioned a couple of them. In Isaiah Rodgers, I thought stood out. Jalen Naylor stood out. But those aren't necessarily guys who are surprises. Those are kind of guys who are already going to figure into kind of secondary roles at their positions. Mm-hmm. If you want to talk about some more deep cut guys from like further down the roster, as we start to look at guys who might be competing for roster spots, at wide receiver, Ja'Shawn Jones was an undrafted guy last year out of Maryland. He kind of just keeps popping, keeps standing out during these offseason practices. He'd be a guy to keep in mind. There's going to be a lot of competition at that wide receiver spot. Ty Felton, the third-round rookie, also out of Maryland, had a great catch from Sam Howell today. Probably the highlight of the day, a deep ball over two defenders. Great throw from Howell. Great catch from Ty Felton. He's going to make the roster. So you've got Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, Felton. I'm assuming then Tim Jones is a veteran they signed who's a good blocker. Rondale Moore has been off to the side. He's still recovering from an ACL injury. And then Ja'Shawn Jones would be right there in that kind of next mix of the guys competing for a roster spot or maybe a practice squad spot. And then on the other side of the ball, I would say at cornerback, an undrafted rookie this year who people probably won't have heard of this name, Zamiah Vaughn out of Utah, is a 6'3" cornerback, tons of length. He's been working even with some of the second team defense in some of these 7-on-7 reps that we saw, which is saying a lot for an undrafted rookie. He's been standing out, breaking up passes, almost had an interception the other day. So that would be a deep cut name to keep in mind at the cornerback position. I wish there were other guys I could give you, but when you're kind of limited to, it's mostly the receivers and the corners. And then like tight ends, linebackers, running backs as well. Some of the tight ends, the rookie tight ends, it hasn't been Gavin Bartholomew, the guy they drafted in the 6th round, because he's been banged up. But a couple undrafted rookies, Ben Urasek, Bryson Nesbitt, they made some impressive plays. They got some juice in some of these young tight ends, I think.
So tell us for those training camp sickos, are we going to have a training camp punter battle? Are we finally going to get it after several years of it being teased for us?
We might. I'm not sure. We didn't get to see a whole lot of special team stuff in these spring practices. But I think it's kind of cool. Oscar Chapman is the undrafted rookie punter out of Auburn that they signed. He's an Australian guy. He's on the roster as the International Player Pathway Program. So there's an exemption where you have 90 guys on the roster this offseason. He's the 91st. So it's kind of cool. The jersey number he's wearing is 91, which is kind of a fun little symbolic thing. But yeah, Ryan Wright, he hasn't been the most consistent over the last couple of years. So I would not rule out the possibility of a training camp punter battle.
We've gotten to the punter, so I think we've covered pretty much everything else there is to cover at camp. Any final takeaways from you that you want to leave Vikings fans with before kind of the dead part of the year where everybody goes away for the summer, they go away for a month, and then we come back for training camp at the end of July?
Yeah, 6 weeks. We'll be putting out various listicles and such at Vikings on SI. There's not going to be a whole lot to talk about. Maybe. I mean, you never know. There could be signings or whatnot. But no, I would just say that I think it's an exciting time to cover the Vikings, to be a fan of the Vikings. Um, I'm looking forward to training camp. I think the competition is going to be really, really high with just the talent that this team has on both sides of the ball. I mean, obviously, like the first team offensive line against the first team defensive line, those are going to be some wars with the Pro Bowl, All Pro type guys that they have in the trenches that they've added this offseason. The receivers against the cornerbacks, tracking J.J. McCarthy's progress, the backup quarterback battle with Sam Howell, Brett Rippon. And there's just going to be a lot of good stuff to keep an eye on in training camp. And then even just the depth. I mean, there are a lot of intriguing guys, intriguing stories further down the roster, many of whom aren't going to make the 53-man roster, but some of whom are. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this team, based on the roster, you're standing there, you're looking around, you're like, oh, there's a former Pro Bowler, there's a Pro Bowler, there's like this is a really stacked roster at a lot of different positions. We'll see if they do anything at cornerback. They seem kind of confident in their current group. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a really fun year to follow this Vikings team. I'm not saying that they're going to win 14 games again or go win the Super Bowl because we still have to see J.J. McCarthy do it. But I've been pretty confident all along that if there's a place where a quarterback like McCarthy can have success, it's here, playing for Kevin O'Connell, throwing to Justin Jefferson all these weapons, the offensive line, the defense, that their ability to play complementary football. I think this team's going to be good, and I'm looking forward to covering it all at training camp.
Yeah, looking forward to reading all your work over at Vikings on SI. Go read the rest of our work over at Timberwolves, Twins, and Gophers on SI as well, covering it for you all over there. Be sure to hit subscribe to the YouTube channel. It does help us get found. Also notifies you every time we post a new video here to the channel. We'll talk to you tomorrow with another topic across Minnesota sports.